Your brain is split into two parts, a left and a right. Each controls half of your body. In the 1960s, some medical researchers did some experiments that won them the Nobel Prize a little later, where they were able to take people where these two halves have been disconnected, they're called split brain patients, and they could talk to one side of the brain and tell it to do something, and then they could ask the other side of the brain, why did you do that? So for example, they might say to one side, stand up. And they'd ask the other side, why did you stand up? Now, the honest answer should be, I don't know. The two halves of the brain are disconnected, and they didn't hear what the other half of the brain said. But that's not what happened. People very consistently had a confident explanation. For example, if you said, why did you stand up? They'd say, I wanted to get a Coke. They were searching for a plausible explanation. And apparently, this is what our brain does. When we don't actually know why we do something, we make something up. Now, this should be concerning to you if you have a sense of doubt, which is, well, how do I know why I do most everything? If my mind is so eager to make something up, how wrong could I be? Now, maybe it's just rare. It happens a few times, and most of us seem to have this impression about self-deception. It's a rare, unusual sort of thing. Maybe it happens with divorced people or people with their children, but usually we know what's right. I'm here to tell you, and I'm glad you're all sitting down, that you're wrong a lot more than you realize about what you do and why. Now, I'm talking about sort of the underlying causes of your behavior. I'm not talking about your conscious thoughts, and you all vary in which things you're aware of, how much. And I'm talking more about what you would say in public. So I'm talking about the thing we usually say about why people do a certain thing, the usual story we give. And this is important because a lot of our policy is oriented around this usual story. And if we're wrong about that, our policy gets wrong. And that's why I think you should hear about this. Okay, but the only way I'm going to convince you that you're this wrong is to go through some examples. My book will go through 10. I have time for 4. First, body language. Now, you spend years in school learning to talk and to write, and you spend almost no time learning body language. Nevertheless, your body is intricate and expert at communicating. So for example, you might be tired or weary, and your body will communicate that, and people will get that. And you're kind of okay with realizing that. But your body will also flirt with people in ways that you might not want to admit, because you're not supposed to be flirting in certain ways with certain people. In addition, every time you interact with somebody else in a personal interaction, there's a status ranking that's created. You negotiate a relative status, and it's usually not equal. Even you and your friend, who you think you treat as equals, you don't. One of you is higher status. The higher status has more of an open stature. They don't mind being noticed. They're being less wary. The lower status person, they are more defensive. They're more wary. When the two of them talk together, the rhythm is set by the high status person. If they're walking, the rhythm is set by that person. This happens with pretty much everybody. Actors have to learn this so they can be realistic on stage. But you don't know this, and you are unaware of it, in part because it would be awkward to have to admit in your friend relationships that one of you is higher status than the other. That's not the sort of thing you want to consciously say. Second example, laughter. Why do we laugh? The usual story has something to do with humor, but actually only 20% of the times we laugh has anything to do with a joke. You laugh when you're tickled, for example. You're 30 times more likely to laugh when you're with people than when you're alone. The speaker is 50% more likely to laugh than the listeners. It's not about humor. We understand now that laughter is a play signal. So when animals do play fighting and play chasing, they need to have a signal where if somebody seems to get hurt, they can say, it's okay, I'm still playing. And laughter is that sort of thing for us. But a lot of our play and interaction is social because we're very social creatures. And so we use laughter to show that even though we're joking about something and somebody could get hurt at this, we're not getting hurt and we're okay with it. So we use laughter to communicate things like who we care about. So if you laugh at jokes about prison rape, you're kind of communicating you don't care much about what happens to prisoners. And we laugh about many things that way so that we would be embarrassed to admit what we are saying indirectly through our laughter. And that's one of the reasons plausibly we're unaware of our laughter. We don't know why we laugh. We just say it's funny, and if anybody were to challenge us and say, why are you laughing at that serious thing? We'd say, can't you take a joke? What do you have no sense of humor? Example number 3, school. The usual story about school is that school is for learning the material. And learning the material is useful because later on, you'll want to get a job, and employers want people who have learned the material. However, this doesn't make sense of a lot of details of school. As most of you who are out of school by now know, most of what we learn in school isn't very useful, and most of it we don't remember. I actually went to Stanford and got a free, high-quality education just by showing up for classes and never registering for anything, which is kind of puzzling if it's all about the degree. If you don't want a degree, then you can just get free, high-quality education. Employers pay more for students with more years of school, but they pay 3 times as much for the last year of high school and the last year of college. But you don't learn more in the last year of high school and the last year of college. So what's going on with school? Again, if a politician were to talk about it, if you were to write a statement of purpose or whatever, the usual thing we say that school is about learning the material. But more plausibly, school is a way that we show off. We show that we're smarter, more conscientious, more conformist. We acclimate to modern workplace habits. We accept propaganda from our church or our government. We socialize and even get babysat. These are all plausible things that happen in school. And if you catch people at the bar late at night, when private, they may admit to many of these things. But in a graduation ceremony or a politician's speech, they will talk about as if it was learning the material. Again, a disconnect between what's the more plausible actual explanation and what we say. Fourth, medicine. The usual story about why you go to the doctor is to get well. You are sick sometimes, and you go to the doctor, and they do things that help you get well, and it's expensive, so you need insurance, and they need to be experts so they can understand things. That's our usual story. If you don't already know, let me tell you, and glad, again, you're all sitting down, there's not much of a correlation between health and medicine. Geographic places that happen to spend more on medicine are not healthier. And we've done randomized experiments where we induced some people to get more medicine because we made it cheaper for them, and in those randomized experiments, again, they're not healthier. We have a number of other puzzles about medicine. We tend to be uninterested in private information about the quality of medicine. We tend to be much more interested in medicine than we are in other things that seem to have much larger effects on our health, like exercise or clean air or sleep. We can't be bothered very much to think about those things. We like medicine that's expensive and visible and seems to cause suffering. What's going on? Why are we doing all these things if we say it's about getting better and it doesn't actually seem to help? More plausibly, our ancestors evolved a habit of using medicine to show that they care about each other. When our ancestors were sick, they didn't need medicine so much, but they needed somebody to take care of them, to feed them, to protect them from predators, to watch their back in the politics of the local group. And if somebody was willing to help you with that, that was a strong loyalty signal. And they were showing you that they weren't ready to dump you and they were with you. And that was important. And so we evolved this habit of using medicine as a loyalty signal. And now if you think about Valentine's chocolates, say, as a loyalty signal, when you think about how much chocolates to buy on Valentine's, do you say, how hungry are they? No. You ask, how big a box of chocolates do I need to buy to distinguish myself from somebody who doesn't care as much as me? And that's what we have to do with medicine too. Even when we go past the point of the medicine not being useful, if we don't pay enough money, then other people think we don't care. And so we push each other to get more medicine. We provide medicine communally in families and companies and nations, and we get a feeling of reassurance from that. And that's a plausible function of medicine, but of course, we don't talk about it that way. So again, there's this puzzle or this phenomena where there's a plausible explanation for our behavior, and then when we talk about the behavior, we talk about it in rather different terms. So in all 4 of these areas, and I can go on to more, as I said, we have the phenomena where there's the thing we usually say about why we're doing this, and when we look at the details, there's other explanations that make more sense, and then the most fundamental question is, why aren't we aware of why we're doing this? Because this applies in lots of other places in our life. And plausibly, the answer is that we have motives that we would like to attribute to ourselves that are good-looking motives, pro-social. And then our actual motives are more selfish. They also tend to violate norms, such as, say, the flirting behavior. And so we consciously are aware of the good motives, and our mind is just hiding from us the actual motives so that we can appear to be sincere and we can pretend to be unaware if somebody were to accuse you of it because you are completely unaware of this other motives for your behavior. Gives you the excuse, plausible deniability. So that's a reason why you plausibly aren't aware of these things. It's a reason why perhaps I'm doing you a disservice by telling you about it now, because now I'm making it hard for you to pretend not to be aware. Sorry about that. But if you want to analyze, say, education or medicine or any of the other major social institutions in our world, and if you assume that people are doing them for the reasons they say, which is what I did early in my career, you will just get stuck. You'll come up with reforms that make sense as a response to what they say they want. You'll figure out a better way to give them what they say they want, and they won't be interested. So in order to actually make progress reforming medicine or school or many of other social institutions, what we need to do is produce new social institutions that pretend to give people what they pretend to want, while simultaneously actually giving them the things they actually want. It's a harder design problem, I agree. It's going to be harder, but we have a much better chance if we can solve that design problem of actually getting things that people will actually respond to. Because again, in the past, if we design education reforms on the basis of making people learn faster, they're not interested. We design medical reforms on the basis of making people healthier, they're not interested. Plausibly because at some deep level they know that's not really what it's about. So this is the elephant in the brain. The elephant in the room is the thing that you all see is there, and you could look at it, but you choose not to. And the elephant in your brain is your selfish hidden motives. The real reasons you do many things are not reasons you want to admit to, and so you look away. You don't see it, and you see the nicer looking motives, and that works fine for you in your personal life, but if we want to be able to reform and understand society, some of us at least need to face squarely what we're really doing and why in order to help make things better. Thank you.